Hello, dear viewers, and welcome to a new episode of Games and Names. Our sport for this episode is Jeet Kune Do, that martial arts sport invented by the legendary Bruce Lee. And our featured guest is Coach Muhammad Shukri. So let's get to know more about Jeet Kune Do and about Captain Shukri in the upcoming minutes of Games and Names. Jeet Kune Do was conceived by Bruce Lee based on his experience in unarmed fighting and self-defense. Originally, Bruce Lee had studied and researched various forms of martial arts and would formalize a system named Jun Fan Gong Fu, circa 1962. However, around 64, following his encounter with Wong Jack Man, Lee came to realize the error of binding oneself to a systemized martial art and announced the Junfang Kung Fu. Following this, Bruce Lee began to passionately work on research and practice in order to refine his way of practicing martial arts. In 1965, he outlined the basic concept of Jeet Kune Do, not wanting to create another style that would share the limitations that all styles had. He instead described the process which he used to create it. Bruce Lee says, "I have not invented a new style, composite, modified, or otherwise that is set within distinct form as apart from this method or that method. On the contrary, I hope to free my followers from clinging to styles, patterns, or molds. Remember that Jeet Kune Do is merely a name used, a mirror in which to see ourselves. Jeet Kune Do is not an organized institution that one can be a member of. Either you understand or you don't, and that is that." Still with Bruce Lee's words, "There is no mystery about my style. My movements are simple, direct, and non-classical. The extraordinary part of it lies in its simplicity. Every movement in Jeet Kune Do is being so of itself. There is nothing artificial about it. I always believe that the easy way is the right way. Jeet Kune Do is simply the direct expression of one's feelings with a minimum of movements and energy. The closer to the true way of Kung Fu, the less wastage of expression there is." Still with Bruce Lee's famous historic words, "Finally, a Jeet Kune Do man who says Jeet Kune Do is exclusively Jeet Kune Do is simply not with it. He is still hung up on his self-closing resistance, in this case anchored down to reactionary pattern, and naturally is still bound by another modified pattern and can move within its limits. He has not digested the simple fact that truth exists outside all molds. Pattern and awareness is never exclusive." Again, let me remind you, still Bruce Lee's renowned words, "Jeet Kune Do is just a name used, a boat to get one across, and one across it is to be discarded and not to be carried on one's back."
أنا اسمي محمد شكري العزالي، مشهور بشكل كابتن شكري. أنا وظيفتي أصلا محاسب.
My name is Muhammad Shukri Al-Azali. I'm better known by Captain Shukri. I am an accountant. The first sport I played was bodybuilding. I played it for 10 years, from 2001 to 2011. I started bodybuilding with the legendary Hamdi Ashami. That captain has an experience of 42 years. People in Egypt started to know Jeet Kune Do in 2018 when we formed a federation for the sport, and it was under the supervision of the Kung Fu Federation. We staged a big tournament where I finished first. Then we formed an independent federation for Jeet Kune Do, and in the first big tournament that was staged by that new independent federation, I came in second. I also attended the first two training seminars for coaches of the sport in Egypt. And in the last international tournament that we organized in the sport, our Egyptian players achieved real good results. I found in Jeet Kune Do what I didn't find in bodybuilding. I really believe it is better for physical fitness, stamina, endurance, speed, and overall health conditions. When Bruce Lee invented this sport, his aim was to confront criminals and thugs in the street. His aim was the street. So when Bruce Lee traveled to the United States, he learned boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, fencing, and other sports, and he was influenced by all of them. Bruce Lee wanted to say to people that Kung Fu is better than karate that was widespread at the time. Bruce Lee named this sport Jeet Kune Do because he invented it from many other similar sports. Our sport is very violent. You have hitting under the belt, which is allowed. You also have hair grabbing, biting. So we had to modify some of the game's rules so it can be accepted by the International Olympic Committee, and we did so, and now the sport is very close to Kung Fu Sanda more than any other sport.
واكيد شفنا الام ام اي والبطولات بتاعتها هي ديت قريبه جدا من اللعبه الجيت كوندو ومعظم الرياضات اتاخدت منها بعد كده.
As I said, I came in first in the first international tournament organized here in Egypt by the newly formed Jeet Kune Do Federation that was affiliated and under the supervision of the Egyptian Kung Fu Federation at the time. Then in the second year, after we became an independent federation, we organized another big tournament, international tournament, where I came in second. And in the third year, I played with the International Organization for Jeet Kune Do Professionals with kickboxing legend Amr Mahrous. Remember that I only played Jeet Kune Do when I was 20-something, so I was a bit old when I started playing the sport. So my goal then became to be a coach and to help form a new generation of youth that would be distinct in the sport and would help to spread it. So I embarked on a number of training courses and seminars for Jeet Kune Do coaches. I also took kickboxing lessons with Captain Haytham Ibrahim and another free fight lessons with Captain Rida Fathi and a kickboxing seminar and course with Captain Amr Mahrous. I gained a number of international certificates related to Jeet Kune Do, and again the aim was and is still to help form a new generation of players for the sport. Now, our national championships start first by the qualifiers and the governorates, then zone qualifiers, and then the winners of the national competition form together the national team, and they play then in the Arab tournaments organized by the newly formed federation, Arab Federation for the sport of Jeet Kune Do, which is under the chairmanship of Captain Rabia Hamza of Egypt. It is to note that a Jeet Kune Do player can play kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, karate, or kung fu sanda. The Jeet Kune Do player is always ready for any competition, and that's how the case should be. Now, the most important thing for a Jeet Kune Do athlete is fitness, stamina, and endurance, and this comes from practice and continuous exercise, so a player can cope easily. One of the main obstacles we face is that a lot of people don't know a lot about our game. They confuse it with other martial arts sports. Another problem is that we have had to change a lot of the game's rules, which was originally designed by Bruce Lee for street fighting purposes. And we did that to make the sport less violent and less dangerous, so as to be able to easily organize tournaments under authorized national, regional, and international federations. But the changing of the original games rules has made true street champions leave the sport because they get disqualified in tournaments for playing Bruce Lee style. Besides, many clubs and youth centers approve of kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, and kung fu sanda, but reluctantly approve of Jeet Kune Do, again because of its original violent nature, though we have worked on changing that and have paid the price for that. Now, Jeet Kune Do has two types of tournaments: a compact system with open gloves, surrender games, and open play, and a light system with closed gloves and protective equipment. And in all cases, and against the original nature of Bruce Lee's game, biting, hair grabbing, and elbowing are prohibited. As for the difference with Kung Fu Sanda, we can say that Jeet Kune Do is very similar to Kung Fu Sanda, with the one exception that in the compact play of Jeet Kune Do, and unlike Kung Fu Sanda, you are allowed to force your opponent to surrender after bringing him to the ground.
Over the edge, feel like I'm floating through the air. The pain I felt is paid for, all is said and done. Oh, I am restricted, fixed upon the web. I need to kick the habit that my mind is breathing in. Break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless. Burning the bridge that keeps us. I'm here and I'm feeling exaggerated, that's what you assume. The story's over now, I must conclude. I am conflicted, watching where I step still, hanging in the balance, not the life I want to live. I want to take it all, standing tall, fear I weighed the person you are. Oh, break out, I've got to see. Spent all my life holding all of it closely. I played it innocent, a feel of discontent. I'm finally facing it all, fearless.
احنا عندنا كابتن ربيع حمزه.
Our Egyptian icons of Jeet Kune Do are spread around the region and the world. We have Captain Rabi Hamza, the head of the Arab Jeet Kune Do Federation in Lebanon, where a Pan-Arab Championship will be held soon, with the participation, of course, of our national team. Now, there will be players from Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Nigeria, Senegal, Lebanon, of course, and others. We also have Captain Ahmed Abdel Fattah, who is stationed in the United States and who has formed an umbrella organization for Jeet Kune Do in the States, a man who meets regularly with one of Bruce Lee's most prominent students, Thomas Kepler. Now, we have a wide base of players in Egypt, and the best of them right now are those representing the national team, naturally. But it is important to note that the squad is changing constantly. The process is very dynamic. For the key is for a player to be steady and to preserve his level day in and day out, and to be able to overcome new challengers coming every day from all across the country. Again, the process selection for national team players starts by governor rates qualifiers, then zone qualifiers, and then national finals. and the process is very dynamic, as I said. There are several proposals to develop the sport and its level in Egypt, and I think the most important of these proposals is the training and education of coaches themselves, and not just the players. For coaches are the key to success in our sport, like any other sport, if not even more. And by the way, we advise players to stick to their coaches instead of changing a coach every year, because this will get you nowhere. For myself, I stuck to my coach for 11 years, and I couldn't play without him. There are also proposals to get funding for players and coaches, since financial return is a main motive for keeping everybody going. It is also important to take great care of the moral dimension of the sport, its players and coaches. For morals and ethics will protect athletes from deviating from the main purpose of practicing sport as a way of life.